She was one of the most brilliant women of the 17th century, a philosopher queen who convinced thinkers like René Descartes to come to her court. She was a sharp political operator who helped bring the devastating 30 Years' War to an end, cementing Sweden's place as a major European power. History has given her plenty of titles: the Minerva of the North, a patron of the arts, a brilliant mind in an age of giants. But there's one title that has echoed through the centuries, the one that has defined her in the popular imagination: the Virgin Queen. As a powerful ruler who famously and stubbornly refused to get married, Christina of Sweden built an image of a monarch who was dedicated only to her nation, above the messy business of marriage and romance. But what if that story, the one we all think we know, is only half the picture? What if, hidden from the public court and the prying eyes of her council, Christina lived a secret life far more passionate than anyone could imagine? And what if her private letters hold the key to her true heart? Today we're uncovering the real story of Queen Christina of Sweden. We're peeling back the layers of myth and propaganda to find the woman beneath the crown and reveal the secret lover who captured the heart of one of history's most mysterious queens. To understand the woman Christina became, you have to start at the very beginning. On a cold December night in 1626, the Swedish royal court was on edge. King Gustav II, Adolf, and his wife, Maria Eleonora, had already lost children and desperately needed an heir to secure the throne. The kingdom was deep in the 30 Years' War, and its future depended on a stable line of succession. When the baby was finally born, the midwives were thrilled. The child was reportedly completely hairy and had a coarse and strong voice. They rushed to tell the king the good news. He had a son, a healthy baby boy. Celebrations erupted. But that joy didn't last long. It was the king's sister, Catherine, who had to deliver the corrected news. She approached her brother and, without saying a word, presented the naked infant to him, revealing the truth. The long-awaited heir was, in fact, a girl. But the king, far from being disappointed, supposedly laughed and declared, "She'll be a clever one. She's fooled all of us." Her father's acceptance, however, was not shared by her mother. Queen Maria Eleonora, known for her emotional instability, was devastated. Later accounts claim that when she was finally told the truth, she screamed, "Instead of a son, I am given a daughter, dark and ugly, with a great nose and black eyes. Take her from me, I will not have such a monster." This brutal rejection would define Christina's childhood, caught between a father who saw her potential and a mother who saw her as a failure. Tragically, King Gustav was killed in battle when Christina was just 5. True to his vision, he had left specific instructions that his daughter should receive the education of a prince. She was to be raised not as a future queen consort, but as a future king. And so she was. She studied philosophy, theology, and statecraft. She became fluent in multiple languages, including German, French, and Italian, and she diligently studied Latin and Greek. She fenced, she hunted, she rode her horse astride like a man, scorning the traditional side saddle. She was molded into a ruler, her mind sharpened into a formidable political and intellectual weapon. When she officially came of age at 18, she was already a phenomenon. Known across Europe as the Minerva of the North, she created a court that was a beacon of culture and learning, a place she dreamed of turning into the Athens of the North. She famously invited the great philosopher René Descartes to be her personal tutor, which shows you just how ambitious she was. She was intelligent, witty, powerful, and now she was the one in charge. With her coronation, Sweden and all of Europe turned their eyes to their new queen, expecting her to do the one thing all female monarchs were supposed to do: marry and produce an heir. They were about to be very disappointed. The pressure started almost immediately. For the Swedish Royal Council, led by the powerful Chancellor Axel Oxenstierna, Christina's marriage wasn't a personal choice. It was a critical affair of state. A husband would secure a political alliance. A son would secure the Vasa dynasty for another generation. To them, it was her sacred duty. It was simple. To Christina, it was unthinkable. From a young age, she had expressed what she called an insurmountable distaste for marriage. She saw it not as a partnership, but as a kind of subjugation. She had studied the life of another virgin queen, Elizabeth I of England, and saw the power in staying single. She once declared, "I could not bear to be used by a man the way a peasant uses his fields." This wasn't just a preference, it was a core part of who she was. She simply would not be a wife. This put her on a collision course with her own government. Her council begged, they reasoned, they threatened. They presented suitor after suitor, including her own cousin, Charles Gustaf, who was a leading candidate for her hand for a time. But she turned them all down. When pressed to explain herself, she was blunt. "I do not intend to give you reasons," she told her exasperated council. "I am simply not suited to marriage." This wasn't just teenage rebellion. It was a fundamental rejection of the role society had created for her. She wore men's shoes for convenience, often forgot to comb her hair, and showed little interest in the feminine activities of her court. She was happier in the library debating philosophy with scholars than in the drawing room making small talk. Her focus was on ruling, on politics, on ending the 30 Years' War. She pursued that goal relentlessly, often clashing with Chancellor Oxenstierna, who wanted to keep fighting. Christina, however, pushed for peace and was a key figure in the negotiations that led to the landmark Peace of Westphalia in 1648, which solidified Sweden's status as a dominant European power. She had proven herself a capable, even brilliant ruler. But the question of her marriage and the succession still loomed over her reign like a dark cloud. Her refusal was a constant source of political instability and scandal. The court buzzed with rumors. Why was this powerful young queen so completely against the idea of a husband? The answer, it turns out, wasn't that she was incapable of love. It was that her heart already belonged to someone else. While Christina kept the men of her court at a distance, there was one person who was allowed into her inner circle. Her name was Ebba Sparre. A stunningly beautiful noblewoman who served as a lady-in-waiting, Ebba was everything Christina wasn't: graceful, conventionally feminine, and admired by all for her looks. Christina was instantly charmed. She gave Ebba the nickname Belle, the French word for beautiful, and openly praised her to foreign ambassadors. But their connection went far deeper than friendship. Christina, who usually showed little interest in her female courtiers, made a huge exception for Ebba. They were inseparable. The most telling detail of their intimacy comes from Christina herself. When introducing Ebba to an English ambassador, the queen referred to the countess as her bedfellow, assuring the diplomat that Ebba's intellect was as striking as her body. The term bedfellow immediately catches our modern ears. While sharing a bed was more common in the 17th century and didn't always mean a sexual relationship, in this context, combined with Christina's other words and actions, it points to a deep, romantic bond. The most compelling proof, however, comes from Christina's own pen. After she left Sweden, she continued to write to Ebba, and the letters that survived are, for all intents and purposes, love letters. In one written from Rome, she pours out her heart. "How happy I should be if only I could see you, beautiful one. But I am condemned by destiny to love and cherish you always without seeing you. I cannot be completely happy when I am separated from you." In another, she pledges her eternal devotion. "I belong to you in a way that makes it impossible for you to leave me, and it will never happen before the end of life that I will stop loving you." The language is passionate, desperate, and filled with a longing that goes way beyond simple friendship. While historians debate the exact nature of their physical relationship, the emotional passion in these letters is undeniable. This all-consuming love for Ebba Sparre offers the most convincing explanation for Christina's famous aversion to marriage. Her heart was already taken. She had no desire for a male suitor because her deepest affections were for her belle. This relationship, hidden in plain sight, was the great secret of her reign. It helps explain her defiance, her refusal to conform, and the shocking decision she was about to make, a decision that would stun all of Europe. By 1654, after a decade on the throne, the pressures on Christina had become overwhelming. Her lavish spending on art and culture had pushed the state toward bankruptcy, making her unpopular. The council's demands for her to marry never stopped. But underneath it all, two other massive shifts were happening inside her. First, her intellectual curiosity had led her to explore a faith that was forbidden in her staunchly Lutheran kingdom: Catholicism. For years, she had been secretly corresponding with Jesuit priests, drawn to the intellectual richness of a religion her own father had died fighting against. To be a Catholic was illegal in Sweden. For the monarch to convert was an act of treason. Second, her desire for personal freedom, freedom from the crown, freedom to live and love as she chose, freedom from the gender roles she hated, had become an obsession. The crown was no longer a symbol of power, but a cage. So, on June 6, 1654, at just 27 years old, Queen Christina of Sweden did the unthinkable. She abdicated the throne. The official reasons she gave were vague. She pleaded ill health and claimed the burden of ruling was too heavy for a woman, a deeply ironic statement from someone who had spent her life proving she was more capable than any man. But the court and the people knew there was more to the story. Her abdication was the climax of all her rebellions, her refusal to marry, her rejection of traditional female roles, and her secret, scandalous conversion to a forbidden faith. In a grand ceremony, the symbols of her office were removed from her, one by one. But when it came to the crown, she took it off herself. She had already named her cousin, Charles X Gustav, as her successor. With the power transferred, she wasted no time. Christina left Sweden almost immediately, a queen without a kingdom, turning her back on her country, her power and her throne, all in pursuit of a life she could finally call her own. The news sent a shockwave across Protestant Europe. The daughter of the great Protestant champion had not only abandoned her people but, as she would later publicly confirm, had betrayed their faith. The Virgin Queen was now a Catholic exile, but Christina's story doesn't end with her abdication. In many ways, it was just the beginning of a new, even more audacious chapter. She made her way to Rome, where she was welcomed as a high-profile convert and a cultural celebrity. Free from the rules of the Swedish court, she fully embraced her role as a patron of arts and ideas. She established a vibrant salon in her palace, which became a hub for artists, musicians, and thinkers like the composer Scarlatti and the sculptor Bernini. But Christina could never really leave politics behind. Her ambition still burned. She got involved in a series of bold, if ultimately failed, political schemes. She made a bloody attempt to have herself installed as the Queen of Naples, a plot that fell apart spectacularly. During a stay in France, she discovered her own master of horse had betrayed her plans. Acting with the absolute authority she still believed she had, she ordered his execution in her presence, an act that horrified the French court. Later, she even made a bid for the Polish crown. Throughout this chaotic period, she continued to defy convention. In Rome, she became a major patron of what would become the city's first public opera house. In a direct challenge to the Pope's orders, she insisted that women be allowed to perform on its stage when they had been banned elsewhere. She also took the city's Jewish population under her personal protection, demanding an end to the cruel custom of chasing them through the streets during Carnival. As Pope Alexander VII once described her, she remained a force of nature, a queen without a realm, a Christian without faith. And through it all, her heart still ached for the woman she had left behind. She continued to write passionate letters to Ebba Sparre, though Ebba's family, afraid of the scandal, made sure they never saw each other again. Christina died in Rome in 1689 at the age of 62 and was given the rare honor for a woman of being buried in St. Peter's Basilica. She left behind a legacy as complex and contradictory as she was, a legacy of brilliance, rebellion, and a secret, powerful love. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another journey into history's most compelling secrets. So, who was Queen Christina of Sweden? She was a brilliant ruler who secured her nation's power, and an extravagant patron who nearly bankrupted it. She was the virgin queen who refused all male suitors, and the passionate lover who poured her heart into letters for her belle, Ebba Sparre. She was a monarch who gave up a crown for her personal and religious freedom, forever changing our idea of what a queen could be. The story of her secret love doesn't take away from her political or intellectual legacy. It completes it. It gives us a richer picture of a woman who wasn't a cold, untouchable, virgin queen, but a complex, passionate person who fought to live and love on her own terms, defying every rule of her time. She was a woman far ahead of her time, whose true, complicated story is still being uncovered today. How does this hidden love story change how you see Queen Christina? Was she a political failure for abdicating, or a personal hero for choosing her own path? Let us know what you think in the comments below.